Okay, it is week 8 already, and we got 3 more weeks to go after this for critical issues in criminal justice. So I told you that the quarter would go pretty fast, and we're coming down to the end. So let's get started right now. Okay, that is not what I wanted to show you. That's what I wanted to show you. Okay, so let's take a look at, again, reminding you who I am and my communication information, my phone number. And you can phone me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. And not many of you have, but yes, you haven't. Looking at from the grades, most of you are doing pretty good. And reminder about research. Don't just rely on the textbook. And then also, the biggest issue that students have is the APA not providing a cover sheet, but not providing citations in the body and references at the end. Citations in the body give credibility to your statements in your papers, and then your references are the resources that you discovered from your research that you use to complete your written assignments. The final lecture will take place week 10. That will be 2 weeks from today. And again, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And now let's take a look at a few of these announcements. First one I want to point out to you is one that I posted on the 18th last week, and reminding you that if you're interested in becoming a tutor, and it tells you about the requirements for becoming a tutor for the summer quarter coming up. And the basic qualifications are listed by each of these bullet points, especially the first one. A minimum of 3.0, but 3.5 or higher is preferred. And then the other bullet points must be satisfied as well. You could click on the work study guide, and the work study guide will tell you how to complete the application. Bethany Marston is our School of Justice Studies Learning Center coordinator, so she's the person that does the hiring. So you want to reach out to her. And then here, of course, is the guide that you can, the link, the hyperlink that you could click on, and it will take you to all further details and the application. So if you're interested in that, and I highly recommend it because it does help you a lot. It builds your resume, and then it also helps you academically as well. Okay. So now let's take a look at our next announcement, which is our weekly announcement for this week. You got 2 of them, and actually the first one is relating to the topic for the week, terrorism and homeland security. And with all the things that are happening in the world, particularly that happened in Manchester, England the other day, terrorism is on the rise, and it's taking place more and more. And so we're going to talk about that. Read chapters 14 through 16 of Visions for Change in the 21st Century, and then the section on terrorism, which we're going to elaborate on tonight. Be sure to participate in the discussion assignment, Winning the War on Terror. You guys have done pretty good with that. Your initial post was due on Tuesday, and your reply posts are due by Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Finally, critical issues rough draft. I need to see that. I saw one student that posted it, so get that completed. Also, the ACAT criminal justice test. Now, that's not going to be posted until June 1st, so don't worry about that. So the ACAT criminal justice test will be posted on June 1st, which is 2 weeks from today, or actually it's actually a week from today, I should say. And yeah, you'll get that assignment to do. So I will be posting that, and then you can complete that during week 10. Very, very, very important. It's an assessment. You'll get your instructions about taking the test at that time. It will not be graded, but you will receive 30 points in class for taking the assessment. It's an evaluation process. Then finally, my motto reminds you to finish strong. We already started strong, and then adversity is the springboard to success. And then again, here is the announcement about the ACAT, and I explained that to you that at week 10 you will be able to assess that, because I'll provide you with the details about how to do that. In the meantime, let's take a look at our course calendar. Course calendar tells you the reading assignment for the week. It tells you about your initial and reply posts. And then it tells you about your actual written assignment that you have for the week, which is the critical issues project. Okay. So now let's take a look at the module itself. Let's take a look again at the assignments, which are not very heavy this week. Your discussion posts, winning the war on terror, along with your rough draft. Now, when you submit your rough draft, make sure that you take time to read all of the points, all the ideas and research presented in your approved outline and thesis that you did previously. And be sure to check your written assignment in week 1 and guidelines for preparing your outline thesis in week 3. And then submit your draft. Before you submit your draft, add a conclusion. I'm going to be looking for that. In your conclusion, summarize your main points and close with a persuasive statement concerning your topic. And then, of course, be sure to have a reference page where you list at least 4 research sources, at least 4, no less than that. Do not use Wikipedia. You should already know that, though. And then tell you how to do your APA. Of course, your citations should be in the body as well. And that's your written assignments for this week. Okay, so now let's take a look at the lesson content. Terrorism, of course, is what we're dealing with this week. Again, those are your assignments. And I already spoke on the ACAT. So we're going to talk about these points. We're not going to talk about the ACAT because we already talked about that. But let's talk about first this whole issue of terrorism and the critical issues. After September 11th and the attack on the World Trade Center in New York, everything changed. We went to a stage that we had never lived in before in this country. We had flags that were raised on a weekly basis or daily basis, letting us know what level of alertness that we were at for a while. And it just, Homeland Security came about, And so we found ourselves in a situation where this was the first time that we had a major attack on American soil that was this serious or this big. The last one before that was Pearl Harbor. And so many things have come about. And so we're dealing with some constitutional issues now that we weren't dealing with before. But again, there's this balance between constitutional rights and the terrorism, protecting the people. So the legality of the detention of terror suspects at places like Guantanamo Bay came about because it was kind of considered that we in this country didn't operate as if we were having a concentration camp. But terror suspects were segregated because of the fact that they didn't want them to, number one, recruit people, and number two, that there was some serious issues that relate to the national security. So there are some questions about Guantanamo Bay. And then the Patriot Act, which came out, which took away some of the constitutional rights that individuals had, some clashes between the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure laws, and protecting our country from terrorists. And so the law came about because of the attack and remains in force today to continue to protect the citizens of the United States. There are a number of other issues, such as the United States has been involved in wars or conflicts with other nations, and Iraq, Iran, and back when I was younger, the Vietnam War, then we had the Gulf War, and so we continue to have the United States to intervene and deal with strikes in various parts of the world when there are, and it appears that there's some activity that endangers people of various nations. And the reason why a number of these things are taking place is because we don't live in a vacuum. We are not to be isolated or building up walls of protection around us and not knowing what's happening around us. Because if you don't, before you know it, you will be attacked by those individuals. And so there are now terrorists that are involved both on domestic as well as foreign. And you are aware of the fact that there have been several attacks that ISIS and other terrorist groups have claimed credit for, such as what happened down in Orlando at the nightclub, such as San Bernardino, such as what just recently happened in Manchester, not in the United States, but the fact of the matter is there are individuals from the United States who are either injured or killed in those kinds of situations. So we, of course, know about terrorism from on a domestic level, from the Oklahoma City bombing that took place a few years ago before September 11th. And the fact of the matter is that now we're at a point where all big public events, whether baseball games, football games, basketball games, that are considered, particularly when you deal with like Super Bowl or NBA championships, even the NCAA championships. You're even getting to the point that local teams like the Cubs, the White Sox, and the Blackhawks, and even when you enter events, concerts, as what happened in Manchester could happen domestically here. The bottom line is that we are at a stage in life where there's individuals who will either be recruited by these organizations, pledging allegiance to organizations such as ISIS, or you will find individuals who will copycat the bombings or terrorist activity, the Boston Marathon, and the list just goes on and on and on. And so the fact of the matter is that we are in a society now where you see people, you see law enforcement on the federal, state, and local levels now dressed in, looks like war gear, and carrying machine guns and other high-powered weapons, looking at strikes, using technology now to keep surveillance on what's happening. Even now, you and I know about the issue, you know, you go on airplanes now, there are questions about your laptops and your technological devices, because of the fact that many of these have been used to create bombs. And almost anything that happens now where there is a disturbance that takes place that affects masses of people at events like festivals. We have Taste of Chicago coming up here. We have coming up Memorial Day weekend celebrations and things like that. You have to be aware that that's a place where terrorist activities will sometimes show their ugly head. So anyway, we're dealing with preemptive strikes, where now, like for example, the President of the United States recently had a strike on one of the countries. I think it was Syria, but I'm not really sure off the top of my head. And we've run into all kinds of issues. The use of torture or waterboarding as an interrogation technique, which is a violation, I think, of the Geneva Convention and an uncivilized form of interrogating individuals, regardless of terrorists or not. And our former president, President Obama, denounced that type of activity. Our current president seems to be moving back in that direction. And the bottom line is that by using these types of activities, are we actually creating more enemies than allies? And so anyway, the question about these type of issues in terms of combating terrorism, are we going too far? And that's an issue that's up for debate. And it depends on whether you're on the side of the civil liberties or you're on the side of maybe the military and the security aspects of it. So, and then there's a mix of those two. And then the bottom line is the treatment of American terrorists. Do they receive different treatment than foreign terrorists? That's an issue that's up. And we are discovering, you know, the president is talking about walls and other types of bans, which, speaking of walls, I understand that in the newest budget that there is a large amount of money, billions, being allocated for the building of the wall. But you know what, though? Our terrorist activities are not coming from Mexico. They're not coming from the South. They're not coming from there at all. And I haven't really seen that, but there are reasons that there is activities being persisted on the wall. Many of us, including yours truly, feel that it's a way to divide. and that next point, the issue about these bans, and the bans that the Syrian countries, that the president continues to issue executive orders, and the courts coming back as recently as today, the appellate court upheld again the freezing of the ban and not allowing the bans to take place on a constitutional level, and also from the perspective of the communities where many people from these countries are living, states and so forth. The bottom line is that this is a form of war, and there's been some questions raised during even our discussion post about, are we winning the war on terrorism? And so I think that's a relative issue when people answer it. I say that we have moved forward from a state where we weren't as aggressive to be more aggressive. Now, the only question that people still come about is, are we getting too aggressive? Well, once again, the point of the matter is that there's a balance between protecting and the constitutional rights. And so protecting us from terrorists seems to have a more compelling governmental interest, and that our rights are only adversely affected if we are engaged in or suspected of terrorist activity. And there's no wide brush that's being used for that, not as far as I can determine at this particular time. But getting back to the business of building walls and building and having bans to come about, the approach, it is kind of, I should say, not really dealing with the issue directly or solving it, because the question is, we got a lot of domestic terrorists. We got individuals that are homegrown who pledge their allegiance to these terrorist groups. And they're from here. They're raised here. They live here. They can't be deported. And so we got an internal problem that needs to be addressed. It's almost like I say this, is if you build walls and you eliminate individuals from coming into the country, you still got a major problem that you're going to have to address internally. And we need to focus on, that's what Homeland Security is supposed to do, both foreign and domestic terrorists. But we need to get stronger in dealing with the domestic terrorists. The biggest news comes because of the alleged foreign terrorists that come about. And so we find ourselves in situations where we have to make sure that we understand that of the time that we're in. The whole issue about taking individuals who are born in this country and not allowing people to even find themselves in situations where if they leave, they may not be able to come back because they're suspected, because they may be from that country, not themselves born native here, but that their family is from a country that there's a ban issue, and we could have a problem there with that as well. So we got a whole lot of issues that are up in the air when it comes to dealing with the whole issue of terrorism. Again, I expressed a great concern because our country is made up of immigrants, people from all over the world, and that we continue to have multicultural people in the United States. We try to focus on diversity, and certainly if there is some attempt to keep family members who are not from the United States from coming to be with their family members here, or to deport parents away from children that are here in the United States on the level that immigration issues haven't been dealt with. So those are just some of the things that are dealing with. But they're serious, and we have to be able to address them. So what exactly are we talking about? Terrorism. How do you define terrorism? Each of the various agencies that we have, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, each have different definitions. Almost any person would basically feel like terrorism involves a attack in our country affected by foreigners. Well, that's not an accurate statement, because there's a lot of, quote, as I said, foreigners in this country who were born and raised here because of their family heritage. So it has changed a lot and continues to change. And so let's, for a minute here, look at what the FBI says. The FBI says that terrorism, and this is a definition of terrorism itself, it says that terrorism is the unlawful use of force or violence against a person or property to intimidate or coerce the government. So in other words, it's to attack on individuals and or property, but its main goal is to hold the government hostage. And it says, in the civilian population or any segment thereof in furtherance of a political or social objective. And that's the key, because terrorism is generally considered as a political or social statement. It is not like the crime that we have in the United States with our criminal laws. We're talking of it's more like mini wars, should I say, not M-A-N-Y, but M-I-N-I wars, where there are factions trying to make a government statement, but the violence that takes place involving people committing suicide by attaching bombs and other devices to them, or putting devices in various places where public events are taking place, create an image that there is an out-and-out war, not with a, quote, national government, but with some factions of government. The Department of Homeland Security, which was created after September 11th, and now is almost every jurisdiction has some form of homeland security on the federal, state, and local level. But DHS defines any activity that involves an act that is dangerous to human life or potentially destructive of critical infrastructure or key resources, such as attempts to send anthrax through the mail, or either to spray something in the air, or to contaminate the water resources that we need in order to live. And then it continues and says, and must also appear to be intended to intimidate, of course, a civilian population, to influence the government's intimidation or coercion, or to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. So the goal is to, again, it's political. It is very much political, and very much an attack not on individuals, but attacks on government. And then the DOD, Department of Defense, says it is the calculated use of unlawful violence or threat of unlawful violence to inoculate fear. And so the point of the matter is to place in the government or the people in fear of violence or some danger, placing themselves in danger. And the goal says it is intended to coerce or intimidate governments. You see the word governments keep popping up over and over and over because that's the key. Or societies in the pursuit of goals that are generally political, religious, or ideological objectives. So the key thing is that rather than people taking the position of by elections or voting in the fashion that many governments operate, but instead to go around that and create a violent situations and circumstances. You know, and it's like I said again, you know, I remember the days of going to a baseball game and we just walk in, we'd carry our water coolers, we would have sandwiches, and a lot of those things are passé now. You can't even bring water coolers into some events because of those kind of things. You're subjected to metal detectors, X-ray machines, and all other kinds of means because of the fact that some things are not metal. Some things are either liquid or either of a powdery substance or a substance that's not metal. The point of the matter is that we are in an era where the attacks on the rights of the people are and will continue to be so. And we are in an era that's different from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s. So that now we have reached a stage where it can happen almost any time, anywhere, any place. And so anyway, that's it for today. We're talking about terrorism. Just be aware of the fact that we're in a society where we are dealing with all of these. And so I have spent time discussing terrorism from all aspects, the laws that have come about. I mentioned the Patriot Act. There's also the RICO Act, the Racketeering Act, which is also used, as well as the Wiretapping Act. And so the point of the matter is that there is an ongoing war on terror. And someone says that they don't know when it'll end. Well, I think it'll end when terrorist activity stops. I don't see it happening anytime soon. I see it as a part of our lives now, and we accept it to be what it is. So with that, I'm going to say good night. Make sure that you complete the assignments. If you have any questions, reach out to me. Monday is a holiday, but remember, because we're online classes, our schedule still continue to operate. And feel free to reach out to me again, as I have said before. So I'm going to say good night.